Hey, this is Dan at Studio Blue Pilates. This is an all levels Pilates mat class. It's 30 minutes long. Only optional props needed if you'd like something for under your knees for kneeling or a little bit of support for your neck. So a pad or a pillow under your head, please grab those, or you can also fold up your mat. We're going to start on hands and knees today. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. And just start by spreading the fingers, let the thumbs relax slightly. And find the place where you feel like your spine is pretty long and fairly neutral. So there's no dramatic curves in the spine. As you exhale, curl your tailbone, round your lower back, mid back, upper back. Press down into your hands so you feel your shoulder blades widen and drop your chin. Hold here and take a couple breaths, stretching the whole back line of the spine. Now, I want you to still think of your knees and your hands rooting down into the ground. And as you inhale, start to release your tailbone. You're going to feel your sitting bones widening, and you'll feel your back starting to arc. So low back, mid back. And as you come into this middle and upper back, it can be a little tight or hard to find this extension here. So think of the shoulder blades drawing in slightly, the heart pulling down and forward. And hold here for a couple breaths, feeling like your hands and knees could pull towards one another. And then again, starting with the tail, articulating through the pelvis, low back, middle back, upper back, shoulder blades widen, drop the chin. And then again, release the tail, arc low, mid, upper back, eyes come forward so the whole spine is extending. Find the place in the middle of those extremes. Crown of the head is rooting forward. Sit bones are wide. So all that means is you're not in a big tuck of the pelvis, but the lower back is neutral. There's a natural curve there. Press down into the hands, press down into the knees. And as you exhale, slide your right leg back. Eventually allow it to lift about hip height. Waistline's drawing in. Notice if you shifted to the left, and can you feel your outer left glute turning on to support you? Draw that leg down and in. And then exhale, left leg reaches out so long, eventually it lifts. The front of the hip opens, the back of the glute line turns on, the waistline is still in, and there isn't any real big dramatic change to the spine, not overly rounding or arcing. Inhaling down, exhaling back. Now, as you do this, if you find your wrists are starting to get tired, you can always come onto your forearms. You can always place a block or a box underneath your forearms if you'd like to keep your shoulders still hip height. And as you go from side to side, we're working through the back of the glutes, but really we're working on the stability of the spine and all the muscles around it. So if you think of your core stabilizing, it's not just the front of your abs or the side of your abs, it's also your back extensors and all your back stabilizers. The glutes are helping here as well, not just to lift the leg, but again, to kind of prevent you from swaying off to the side. Finish off to your last side, so mine to the left side. Lower down and then feet together, knees open, push back child's pose. You can reach your arms out in front of you if you'd like a little bit of overhead reach and shoulder extension. If that doesn't feel good, you can place your hands underneath your head. Really just feel the whole back line getting a gentle stretch, the back of the glutes getting a little bit of a stretch. If your hands are out in front of you, gently press down into the ground and push yourself into your heels, increasing the stretch. Relax the shoulders out of the ears. And notice if you're holding any tension in the front of the hip creases, and then is there a way that you can let that tension melt away? Maybe by breathing in through the nose and gently breathing out through the mouth. Walk your arms over to the left. Find a gentle stretch to that right side. Opening up from the armpit all the way down to the outer hip. For a moment, you might even let your shoulder lift into your ear, and you might notice a deeper stretch down the side of your back. And then you can let that shoulder relax. Walk your hands through center into the other side. So now my left arm is reaching long, stretching from my armpit to the outer hip. Maybe let your shoulder for a moment lift, right? This is a natural range of motion that we still need. We don't want to live there by any means, but it is a needed range. Let that shoulder soften, walk back to center, and then roll yourself up. We're going to make our way onto our back, knees bent, feet flat. Now, as we get into this ab work and glute work, if anything doesn't feel good in your lower back, just know that you can always peel it back and you can always modify. Arms are going to come down by the side, palms face down. I'm going to start with my feet about shoulder distance with a little bit of a turnout. So if your hips are generally tight or your back is generally tight, your lower back, this might be a nice place to start. Curl the tail, feel your sacrum press into the ground, and then start to peel the tailbone up. So I'm coming up one vertebra at a time. The knees start to reach out towards the second and third toes. So there's this sense of really tractioning out. Check in that the weight is still on the back of your shoulders. It's not overly compressing the back of the neck. And just hold here for a moment. There's a sense of the feet pushing down and the knees reaching forward. As you exhale, soften through the back of the heart and just roll down slowly. Okay, so we have a vertebra in our spine, and all of these vertebrae from our neck all the way down to our lower back have individual motion. And as you go up and down in your bridge, you're trying to access that segmental motion or just that individual motion that all of our vertebrae have, or we'd like them to have. So as you come down, if you notice there's a spot that feels particularly tight or tense, maybe pause in that spot, take a breath, and then come down another inch or so. And again, maybe take a breath into it and bring it down. We'll go two more like this, just at your own time and your own pace. And again, I'm in a wide-legged, little bit of a turned out squat. My hips are feeling a little tight today. My quads are feeling a little tight. So this is a nice place for me to start. I don't feel any cramping in the back of my legs or my lower back. So it might feel pretty nice for you as well. We're going to go one more like this, curling, rolling up, knees stretching out over the feet. Collarbones open, and there's a very gentle sense of my arms pushing down. So my back body is on, back of the glutes, my back extensor line, the back of my shoulders. Roll it all the way down. And then we're going to come into more of a classic setup with our bridge. So feet about hip distance. So this requires a little bit more mobility in the hips and the thighs and in the lower back. Same thing, curl the tail, feel the sacrum get heavy into the ground, and start to peel up one vertebra at a time. There's a sense, again, of the knees reaching forward. And feel after about halfway, the hips start to open, and it's the glutes turning on that are opening up our hips. Make sure that your mid-back, the base of the ribs, isn't overly arcing or popping like this, but there's a sense of the front of the ribs really staying kind of heavy and soft. And maybe you come up to where your knees, hips, and shoulders are in one long line. Maybe you're not quite there yet. That's okay. As you exhale, take it down again, one vertebra at a time. Just notice if you feel anything different with the feet closer together. One more like this. Weight into the heels, curl. As you roll up, knees, traction forward. Right around halfway, take a moment of pause. Again, feel where the heels are. Think of the knees reaching forward so the front of the hips open, the glutes turn on, the ribs stay fairly heavy. I'm not jamming them down, but there's some weight. I'm really trying not to let my mid-back overly arc here. So it's more of a neutral bridge or a Pilates bridge. Hold here. Take your arms to the sky, palms face each other. As you exhale, reach your arms overhead. Go slow. And as you roll down, again, try to hit every piece of your back. Reach your arms overhead as far as it feels comfortable on the shoulder and as low as you can go without touching the ground. Turn your palms to face up as your pelvis touches the ground. Pelvis is neutral. There's a little bit of a natural curve. Lift the arms, nod the chin towards your throat, and then curl the head and the chest up. Use the reach of the arms to help curl you up off your shoulders. Take a breath. And as you exhale, bring your hands together behind the head. Stay lifted. The elbows are lifting slightly to the sky. On your next breath, lower the chest. and the head to the ground. We'll keep the hands behind the head now. Nod the chin slightly. As you exhale, curl head and chest up. So the ribs are dropping down, the sternum's getting heavy. The pelvis is fairly neutral, right? We're not overly tucking or overly flattening, but your neutral might look different than mine, and that's okay. On your next breath, lower down from the base of the ribs, middle of the ribs, upper ribs, and head. And again, nod the chin, exhale, curl. Check in that you're not overly squeezing your bum. The deep abdominals are on, and we're lowering. One more like this, nodding the chin, exhaling up. I'm already shaking. My abs are also a little tired today. Hold here. There's a sense of your elbows reaching a little bit to the sky. And imagine if I was going to give you a little lift up from your elbows, your shoulder blades would widen and you might come up off the bottom tips of the shoulder blades ever so slightly. Now put a little weight into your left foot. Exhale, float the right leg tabletop. So the knee and the hip are about 90 degrees. Just checking that that hip didn't hike up and that the lower back is still pretty neutral, right? The left foot's on the ground, so it should feel pretty stable. Right foot comes down to the ground. Exhale, left leg floats up. Keep weight rooting down into that right leg so that right hip stays heavy. You're not rolling off to that left side. Inhaling to lower and just keep marching at your own time in your own pace. Again, sense of the elbows lifting a little bit. The neck is long and your head is heavy into your hands. Now imagine that the front of your belly is a little bit packed in. So as you're breathing in, you're not just breathing into the front of your stomach, but you're breathing down the back side of the rib cage to really allow your diaphragm to drop and allow the rib cage to expand, right? So the back side is expanding, the side of the ribs are expanding. It doesn't mean your belly's not going to move at all, but you're not just going into a big belly breath. Once you finish your left side, lower the chest, lower the head, send the left leg down to the ground, and then just hug the right leg into your body. Feel the left foot flex, reach through the heel, and push down through the back side of that leg. So the front of your left hip is opening, and the back of your right hip is opening, the back of the glutes here. Shoulders are easy. Just hold here for a moment. You can open the right arm and you can start to draw this right leg a little bit over the body. So eventually this hip might start to lift and you might feel a stretch in the back of the glutes. If you want a little bit more of a twist, just continue to let that leg cross over, keeping the right shoulder fairly heavy and the lower back long. So it just doesn't have to be very big. Bring it back to center, lower the right leg to the ground, flex the foot. Root down through the heel and reach it away. Left leg draws in. Let that left foot relax. Again, right foot is active. Front of the right hip's opening. Back of the left hip is opening, right? The back of the glutes. Open the left arm and maybe just start to draw this leg a little bit over the body at first. So I'm still kind of resisting the hip lifting. So this outer glute is getting a stretch. Maybe bring it a little further. Thinking of a little bit of length through the lower back. So I'm not just letting my lower back arc. My left shoulder is staying pretty heavy. You might feel a bit of a chest stretch here as well. Exhale, come back to center. Hug both knees into your body. Lift the head and the chest. Now, the tailbone is heavy. The lower back is a little bit imprinted, right? But without a big tuck like that. You want to make sure your bum is still on the ground. Use your arms to lift yourself off your shoulder blades. Really let your shins and your feet relax and allow the front of the thighs to relax. As you exhale, slowly bring your hands around the back of the head. Stay lifted, right? On that transition, you should hopefully feel some abs working there. Now, on your next breath out, let your right foot drop to the ground. It's just gently going to touch. Heel to toe touches. Inhale up, and then exhale, the left foot gently drops. Now, my chest is still lifting. My waistline's in, and really important, I want you to breathe. And it doesn't matter really if you inhale on the way down or exhale. I like to switch it up sometimes. So if you're inhaling on the way down, really feel that the back of your ribs are expanding. You're not locking or bracing into your mid-back. One more each side. Or maybe if you want a little more stability, it's an exhale to drop down. Last one to the left. And then grab your shins, lower your head, and just give your hips a little bit of a rock from side to side. Grab the back of your thighs. We're going to come into more of a classic tabletop. Just know you can always peel this back to marching. A couple exercises to go. All right, so where your feet were on the ground. So classic tabletop, knee and hip 90 degrees, tail heavy, waistlines in, shoulders soft. As you exhale again, hands to the back of your head. Know you can always have your feet on the ground. On your next breath out, take a small twist to the right. So I'm really thinking of this left elbow stretching up towards the sky and almost past my right knee. Inhale center and then exhale up and over to the left. Now you can do this with one hand behind a thigh, helping out if you need a little bit of support. You can do this with the feet on the ground. You can do this by reaching an arm across your thigh, right? That reach, especially if your back is a little tight, your upper back, that reach can help give you a little bit more leverage to come up. Last one to your left. And then lower everything down to the ground. Feet can lower one at a time. Arms relaxed by your side. Feet hip distance. Just one time, curl your tail. Start to roll up into your bridge. Again, around that halfway mark, feel your hips are opening, the back of the glutes are on. The ribs are just kind of heavy. We're not overly gripping or bracing the ribs down. Put some weight in your left foot. And as you inhale, let your right hip drop down slightly. The knees won't change. We're not swaying the pelvis to the left. We're just dropping that right hip. So there's a little bit of pelvic rotation. Push into the feet, lift up. See if you can feel both glutes turn on. Inhale, left hip drops down. So again, pelvic rotation, hip rotation, exhale, lift. As you do this, try not to arc too much through the mid or the lower back, right? Just feel this lovely rotation, pelvis rotating around thigh bones. The spine and the ribs get to rotate here as well. One more with the right hip dropping. Come back to center if that feels okay. Put weight in your left foot. Float the right heel or the right leg fully tabletop. And again, feel, okay, the core is on to give you a little bit of stability. The left glutes, left hamstrings are on. As you inhale, tap the right toe down to the ground. Exhale to lift up. We're just gonna go 4 more like this, inhaling down, right? Waistline still secure. 3 more, inhale. Last 2. Still thinking of the belly drawing in a little bit. And as you breathe in, you're trying to get that breath to draw down the back of the ribs. That was your last one right there. Allow your foot to drop, re-lift the hips if they got heavy. Re-feel that connection of ribs drawing down. Can you get your breath into the backside? Left heel or that whole left leg floats up, pause. Right? Inhaling to tap the toe or heel, whatever you'd like. Exhaling up. But again, focus on your breath, focus on right glutes, right? The side of the glutes, the center of the glutes, all working to support you. Arms pressing down, fingers reaching to the bottom edge of your mat. On that last one, lower the foot, re-lift the hips, take an inhale. Exhale, roll it down, upper spine, middle spine, and lower spine. Hug the knees into the body at the bottom. And again, rock your hips a little from side to side. Eventually, we're going to rock onto your side facing me. Now, a couple things here. We're going to work on upper back rotation. I love this. All right, we all need some form of this upper back rotation for the health of our shoulders, our neck, our lower back. So you can take both hands behind your head like me, hips stacked, knees bent, feet in line with sit bones. If you have some pillows at home or just want more support for your neck, or if it doesn't feel good lying on your bottom shoulder, a couple pillows might feel nice and you can bring that bottom arm forward. So I'll demo here today. Back hand behind the head, again, lengthen the top waistline. And then as you inhale, let your head start the movement. So my eyes are going to start to look up. My upper back and my rib cage start to spiral back. Oof, I'm running out of runway. And I'm only going so far that there's not a ton of movement in my pelvis. For the most part, my hips are staying pretty stacked. My upper back is rotating. Make sure that your lower back isn't overly extending. It's just staying neutral. As you exhale, the ribs come back to center, and then the shoulder and the head and the arm follow. So again, as you inhale, arm lifts, head starts to rotate, right? So your neck down through this thoracic spine, right? So the upper back, the middle back, waistline's still a little bit in. Exhaling back. Again, feeling that little bit of pack in through the front of the belly. So as you inhale, again, you're not just breathing out into your stomach, you're letting that breath expand side to side and down the back of the ribs. Right? Hold on this one, just breathe. Waistline's in. One more deep breath in through the nose. Out through the mouth. Bring yourself back to center. We're going to prop up onto the bottom forearm. And just set yourself up so your elbows about under the shoulder. Again, knees are stacked, feet are together in line with sit bones. That top arm can come forward, right? And just slump for a moment, letting your shoulder lift into your ear. And then draw the shoulder down and lift the ribs. So you feel everything from the armpit down the side of the ribs become active. This might be your spot. If you're recovering from some kind of shoulder injury or rotator cuff injury, this might be where you stay. If you want to add on, lift the hips. So now that the outer side of the glutes have kicked on, maybe lift the top arm. Hold here and breathe. So this is a modified side plank on the form, but I just really like this just generally. I don't think it's necessarily easier by any means. So just because something's a modification doesn't necessarily mean it's easier. It's just different, right? I tend to feel a little bit more glutes, a little bit more of my obliques and my lats working. Let everything come down. Again, reset, shoulder drops, ribs lift. Maybe stay here or lift the hips. If you'd like to add on, maybe the top leg reaches out and we just hold, right? Make sure the ribs are still drawing in a little, right? We're not overly arced through the back. You're also not overly rounded through the back. Let everything come down and we'll switch sides. So again, just 30 minutes today and really just highlighting just a lot of motion that we all need. So upper back motion, hip motion, spinal articulation, deep ab work. And eventually towards the end, we'll get some upper back work in as well. So knees bent forward, hips stacked, feet in line with the hips. You can have both hands behind the head or bottom arm long. My top hand's going to go behind my head. Just breathing for a moment, lengthen the top waist. As you inhale, let your head start the motion. And then the upper back follows. So this is still articulation. We're just rotating and articulating, right? Hold and breathe. Exhale, bring it back. So again, we're not just moving in one piece, but we're trying to find that joint by joint movement, this time just in rotation. The waistline's still in. I'm checking my lower back. I'm not overly arcing. I'm not overly rounding as well. Exhaling back. And rotating head, rib cage. Lower back's going to stay pretty stable on this, pretty still. Last one, rotating back. We're going to hold and breathe on this one. Again, the front of my waistline is a little bit packed in. So as I breathe in, I've created more pressure, and that pressure is helping to expand the back of the ribs and the side of the ribs. And you might notice with each exhale, you might find a little bit more motion. I'm not forcing it. I'm just letting my breath guide it. On your next breath, come back to center, prop yourself up onto your bottom forearm. Now you could take one of these, this is just a gardening pad from Ace Hardware, any kind of hardware store would have it. You can prop it up, or you can place it underneath your forearm, or you could fold your mat. Shoulder softens out of ears, ribs lift, waistline's in. Maybe lift the hips, maybe take your top arm to the sky and hold. So we're working the shoulder, the waistline, the outer hip line, right? And just breathing here for a moment. In through nose, out through mouth. Again, if it doesn't feel good, hips can stay on the ground, right? Honor where you're at today and just know that every day, right, it's different. Every week, every month, every year. Let everything lower and reset. Collarbone opens, rib line lifts. Maybe the hips and the arm lift. Maybe that top leg reaches out long. And again, I tend to overly arc my back, so I'm really thinking of my ribs drawing in a bit, my waistline drawing in. You might overly round your back, so you might be thinking of the opposite of me, lifting the heart slightly, finding length. Or you might do this just perfectly, and you might not need any one of those cues. But wherever you're at, just find your neutral, whatever that means to your body. Holding for 3, 2, let everything lower on 1. All right, we are gonna take these props off to the side for a moment, and we're gonna come down onto the belly. So for a basic back extension move. So the arms are gonna come back, palms facing down, somewhere away from your mat, legs as wide as you need them for your hips and back to feel relaxed. Forehead can be on the ground, or your nose can be an inch off the ground. Draw the waistline in a bit, feel some weight in the pubic bone. Try not to overly tuck the bum like this. But again, just feel the weight of the hips and the pubic bone rooting down, the belly lifts. Inhale, lengthen through the head and the chest, and peel up just to about the midline of your sternum. So the upper spine, the middle spine is moving without too much movement to the lower back. The lower back's just staying stable. The shoulders have rolled back gently. Exhale, take it down. The shoulders are going to roll a little forward. Inhale, start to peel up. So you're looking a little forward. The shoulder heads roll open. Upper spine, middle spine, extend. Maybe lift the arms. See if you can still keep the knees and the feet relaxed to the ground. Waistline in. Now the back of the glutes are on to help stabilize. But again, we're just not overly tucking. Thinking more about length than height. So you might come down a little bit, and coming down further, you might feel more work in your upper back. So that's okay. Exhale it down. One more time. Set the stomach. Start to peel up. Shoulders naturally roll open. Maybe the arms lift, maybe the legs lift. So if the legs have lifted, I'm thinking the front of my hip joint has to open versus my lower back just going into a bigger arc or a hinge. The back of the glutes, they just start to kick on. The back of the hamstrings are on, and really the whole back side of your body, including your shoulders if your arms have lifted. Take 1 or 2 more breaths here, breathing in deeply. And you might notice that the deeper you breathe in, you might notice that it helps create a little bit more extension in the ribs. On your next exhale, lower down, hands under shoulders, and then come up to hands and knees and just one time round your spine like a cat. Let your chest open to neutral. And again, just one time round like a cat. Curl tail, drop chin, widen shoulders. Now bring your hands towards your knees, roll up to kneeling. Now you can fold your mat if you want a little more cushion. You can grab a pillow or a cushion. So I'm going to grab a cushion today, just because this mat isn't too thick. And we're going to come into a low kneeling lunge. Now, if this doesn't feel good on your hips, you can go back to what we did before where you were lying down, hugging one leg into your chest. And that leg that's still on the ground will get a hip stretch. Otherwise, we're up here. My left leg is forward. My knee is over my ankle. And my right knee, right, the leg that's behind you, that knee is directly under my pelvis. So I'm not in this big hip stretch yet. Now my waistline's in, my pelvis is neutral. And to find this hip stretch, I'm not going to overly tuck my bum and round, but I'm just going to think of my front heel and my back thigh kind of magnetically pulling towards one another. I'm going to think of my waistline drawing in, but again, I'm not overly rounding my lower back on this. I'm going to think of a little bit of length through my spine. Now, if you pack in the front of your belly a little bit, can you breathe into your backside? And as you bring some breath back there, does that increase the stretch down the front of your right hip and right thigh? Now, take your hands to your chest. Take an inhale. As you exhale, the rib cage is going to twist to the left, only so far that the hip doesn't start to hike, right? Make sure that left hip stays pretty heavy. Inhale to center. And again, as you exhale, the rib cage is twisting to the left. My right knee is still rooting down into the ground a bit. So as the ribs are twisting and the spine's twisting, you might notice there's a little bit of an increase in the stretch in that back hip and that right hip. Last two, exhaling the twist. Yeah, if you notice the balance feels a little shaky or off, take your front foot a little wider. That's okay. Stay long through your spine. Nice. And then come back to center. We're going to walk the left leg a little bit forward and we're going to take the right hand down to the ground. So in a perfect world, my front knee would be over my ankle. My back hip is getting a little bit of a stretch and my right hand is down on the ground. Now you could place this hand on a block, whatever you need. My shoulders are going to roll out of my ears. My left hand is coming to my chest. Now I'm going to start to look to the left. I'm going to push down into the ground with my right arm and open the ribs. Inhale to center. Maybe you drop your left hand down to the ground. You might feel more stretch in your left inner thigh. Exhale, hand to the chest. Push the right arm to the ground so the upper spine is rotating. All right, make sure the left leg isn't just flopping out to the side, but there's some weight through that first ball of the foot. Bring it back to center. One more like this. So twisting, so it's hip mobility, it's upper back mobility. My lower back is still long. My shoulders are rolling open. Bring it back to center and then switch sides. That last one, maybe you've seen it or done it at some point. Some people call it the world's greatest stretch. And I would kind of agree with that. It feels good. So I've switched legs. Now my right leg is forward. My back knee is pretty much right under my hip. My front knee is right over my ankle. And I'm upright. All right, if the head is starting to come forward, again, think head drawing back lightly. I'm not just shearing or overly pushing it back, but head drawing back a little. My back knee is rooting down. My front heel and my back thigh are trying to kind of pull towards one another. So that right away might have increased the stretch in your left hip. I'm also thinking of a little bit of a squeeze into my back glute. And I'm thinking of the front of my waistline drawing in, but again, I'm not overly rounding or tucking my bum. Just hold here, take a couple breaths, really arms anywhere you'd like them. I'm going to keep them here just so you can see my hips still. And again, I'm still thinking actively, back knee rooting down, back knee, front heel pulling towards one another. A little bit of a squeeze to the back glute. Hips are square. Hands can come to the chest. As you exhale, the rib cage, right where your hands are, we're going to start to rotate the ribs to the right. Check in that the hip didn't hike up. There's still some weight here. Inhale to center. Exhale, the rib cage rotates, right? We need some mobility in this outer hip for that to happen. And I'm still thinking in my back leg rooting down. I'm not forcing this. I'm letting my head go with me. Again, the front of my belly is a little bit packed in. So as I breathe in, I'm not just breathing out into the front of my stomach, but I'm trying to allow that breath to travel down the backside of the ribs. I'm trying to get my diaphragm to fully descend. One more like this. Now come back to center. You can walk your right leg a little bit forward or whatever leg you're on. Recheck that your front knee is over your ankle or even over the center of your foot. Left hand down to the ground. Try to bring it under the shoulder or bring it as wide as you need it to feel comfortable. Right hand to the chest. Push down into the ground with the left arm. Roll the shoulder open and allow the ribs to rotate. Now, you're not forcing this. Your rotation might look different than mine. That's fine. As you inhale, come to center. Take that right hand to the ground. Or again, you could be using blocks, whatever you need. Inhale, push down into the left arm, rotate the rib cage open. This is thoracic rotation. This isn't lower back rotation. Inhale it down, hand to the ground. All right, rotating so that back hip is still opening, the upper back and the neck are moving. And as this right hand comes to the ground, you might feel more stretch through the right inner thigh and hamstring complex. Last one. And bring it down. And then release that. If you had a pillow, take it off to the side. Now you can be seated or you can be lying on your back for a little bit of resting or just breathing to end. So just a comfortable place on your back, kneeling, cross-legged. Close your eyes and take a breath in through your nose. Hold at the top of your breath. Exhale through your mouth and let it out. And again, breathe in through your nose. Feel your ribs expanding. Allow your belly to expand now. Let that breath drop all the way down to the base of the rib cage. Hold for a moment, relax your neck and shoulders. Exhale through an open mouth. One more deep breath, breathing in, relaxing anything that doesn't need to be tense right now. And breathing out. You can open your eyes, enjoy the day. Thanks for moving with me.